Welcome back, everybody, to me being annoyed about the Wheel of Time, and today it's time to wrap up The Gathering Storm. Yep, we're done with it. Ain't that great? I know I'm excited because I can go and read good books now until Monday. But we're back to talk about Towers of Midnight. What a pleasure, isn't it? All right, that's what we're going to do today. Let's get to it, right? Cheers. All right, here we go. This is chapters 40 up to the epilogue, I guess. And it's mostly weird things. It's mostly Egwene's situation, raid on the White Tower, all of that stuff, becoming the Amerlin for everyone, that kind of stuff. And then we go and look at what Rand's doing and all of that stuff, and then we're done with it. And let's start with Egwene, shall we? Because that's where we left off last night. She gets woken up by, Nicola, I guess. And I still have issues with Nicola as a character because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's what we got for now. So she gets woken up and is like, oh, it's the final battle. And she's like, no, it's the Shan-Chan. Because I've dreamed it and let's do stuff. And then we get like a lot of combat shit of her, rallying all those novices and people and becoming super powerful, getting getting a powerful sangreal and shooting Rakan and Tolrakan out of the sky. Now, well, there's like small inconsistencies and logic issues that I have with this. And that is like, why does everyone, including Egwene, know those flying beasts are called Rakan and Tolrakan? And yes, you can argue that Egwene was a Damani for a while in The Great Hunt. Is that The Great Hunt? Yeah, it's already The Great Hunt, isn't it? Crazy. Yeah, well, you can argue that one. But on the other hand, she was a fucking Domani who was, as we have seen, treated like pets. They don't get told shit. Why does she know these kind of things now? Because it's convenient to actually name them and don't write weird shit? Probably that. Anyway, also, why can Nicola, who was supposed to be too old to actually become an accepted, now, a novice, and now actually be a novice? Weird stuff, just things we have to live with. So yeah, she becomes super cool fighting all these things, and to be fair, we know action scenes are good with these books, and that whole like aerial combat kind of thing did feel really cool. That was well done. It's, praise where it is, due. That was pretty good action out there. At the same time, what's her name? Swan, Gavin, and Gareth Bryn decide to run into the tower to free Egwene, because they thought she's in deadly peril. Which, to be honest, she is, kinda. They drag her out. She's like, you shouldn't have done this. I had everything under control. She takes everyone from, she reveals the Black Aja thing, takes all those Black Aja in her camp, kills them all, and at that point, the surviving Aes Sedai in the tower are like, well, Elida is gone, I guess we should just take Egwene, and then we get, a bit of, feel good. Egwene becomes Amerlin, takes Sylviana, the Mistress of the Novices, as her keeper. Everything's good, everyone's happy, things will be great and glorious and all of that crap. Also, yeah, Swan bonds Gareth as her warder, and we need to talk about why that is stupid. But, there we are. So, is any of this, surprising? No, it's not. It's literally, you knew that would come, right? You knew from the point on, when we knew that a raid on the White Tower would happen, which is 2 books ago or whatever, when Egwene dreams it. From that point onward, we knew that shit would go down, the raid would happen, and after that, Egwene would be Amerlin, because conveniently, Elida got taken by the Shan-Chan. And that's like my first big problem that I have with this book. It once again goes to like how these stories are structured at this point. And I'm not sure if this is Robert Jordan's doing or if this is Brandon Sanderson's doing. But what we get here is very much an easy way out again, right? And by easy way out, this time around, I mean very crude ideas of justice. Like Old Testament style justice, right? But weird. Because we know that being taken to money is the worst thing that could ever happen to anyone, right? We know that. Egwene knows that. Everyone knows that. And Elida gets taken as a Damani. And everyone's like, yeah, well, she kind of deserves it. No. That's not how justice works. This is like eye for an eye kind of shit. And to be fair, it's not even I punish you for the things that you have done. It's no, we'll just let someone else handle that, and we have conveniently removed the big obstacle, and we don't have to think about why Elida did the things she did, how much of that was actually her guilt, how much of that was Alviarin's guilt. We don't need to talk about these things anymore, because we conveniently just put her somewhere where she's now a slave and treated like an animal. Great, isn't it? And everyone's like, yeah, well, not a problem anymore. And there's like two things here. One of them is that it is extremely easy to do that. It's extremely easy to do that and convenient to write it that way. Because now Elida is gone, we don't have an actual showdown. Egwene will never have to live with the fact of, facing down, killing, or whatever Elida, because she's moved away by, a higher power. And the higher power is obviously, fuck higher powers in general, right? So that's the convenience side. The other side is this kind of gut justice, and it's not actual justice, right? That kind of thing appeals to a lot of us, right? We've seen Elida behave badly for a lot of times, right? And now she gets punished real hard. And you know what? That's wrong. That's not how civilized justice systems work. We look into how, maybe this is a problem of me living in a country where the entire prison system is not about actually, punishing, but about reformation in a lot of ways, right? We want to make people, it's not about recompense is what it is. And this is very much what this looks at. It's like, yeah, this is like this gut feeling is like, yeah, I got hurt, so I want you to hurt. And not like I want to prevent that hurt being happening again. No, it's all about that person has to suffer because they did something wrong. And that's not how justice works. No, it's not how justice works. Forget your fucking Old Testament about that. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's not how that shit works. We're civilized people at this point. We're not fucking nomads in the Arabian desert anymore. That shit's over. Give it up. But it is very popular in a lot of ways, right? We see that a lot. We want people that we feel have done wrong. We want those people to suffer. And stories like this, and we've seen this before, right? With Galena Casban being, that slave, that Shido slave and whatnot. We've seen that before. And these books very much rely on giving the audience that feeling, that thrill of justice being done, by justice being defined as punishment for everyone who did wrong, and punishment having to be at least as painful as what was done to the other person. Or evil people, just because they are evil, are now getting punished. Now, that's bad. It is morally reprehensible to do it that way, and the fact that it is kind of played for, yeah, I feel good now, for the audience, for the satisfaction of the audience in a lot of ways, is something that I really hate about it. It's already a very problematic urge that a lot of us have. It's a very childish urge in a lot of ways. And to have to play into that, to lean into that, I feel is, it's wrong, is what it is. It's wrong and dangerous, because that's not how shit should work, right? But here we are. It's just another thing that we have to deal with in these books, that the bad people get punished, and they get punished hard because At the end of the day, there's no morality in these books. There's no, gray areas. We don't even need to think about the gray areas. Varen Sedai is good. She just, got dragged into something larger than that, and then she sacrificed herself, and now everything's fine. Elida, who had very good motives. Let's not forget that she had really good motives to depose Swan. And even Egwene kind of thinks about it for 1 second before it gets, all pushed aside and doesn't matter anymore. But Elida thought she was doing the right thing. She was manipulated in a lot of other things. So at the end of the day, what you could accuse her of is being impulsive and being naive and being led by someone with very evil ambitions indeed. That's not a crime that should be punished by being a slave until for the rest of your life, being dehumanized and getting your entire personality stripped away. Let's just not forget that is exactly what is happening to her now. And if you feel satisfaction because that's what's happening to her, you should very much sit down and, look at your moral compass, examine your moral compass, and maybe think again. Because, even if you're a Christian, we've got this wonderful thing which is called the New Testament, and this guy called Jesus, which, we're celebrating his being nailed to a tree today. I think that's how that works, right? And then we celebrate his comeback on Sunday. With that dude, the idea, if you have a Christian morality, which I personally don't, but, the idea is that thou shalt love thine enemy. Don't go in for the eye for an eye thing. That was, 1.0. We're at 2.0 at that point. So if you believe that kind of shit as a Christian, you should really think again and read your book again. If you believe that without religious motives, and, both Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan are very religious people as far as we know. So that, it's already in there. It's like, get your shit together and think about it, man. Sorry about that. All right. So yeah, it's something that we've seen before in this series, and it comes up again. And with Elida, in particular, it felt wrong for me. It felt really wrong. And it's kind of easy to have this whole story like all the good people get rewarded at the end, and all the bad people get punished, real brutal, so we can dance in glee on their grave, just like 5-year-old kids in fucking kindergarten who believe that that's how things should work. It sucks. It really sucks. The rest of it is, as I said, very, predictable in a lot of ways. So let's look at the idea of Gareth Bryn and, what's her name, Swan Sunshay watering each other. And possibly marrying later on. There's an issue here. And that goes back to the whole, love and romance in these books really sucking. But I've said that before, right? The point is, think back all the way to Fires of Heaven, right? When they first meet, well, it's meet again, but, without the whole, Aes Sedai background, right? And it's like, they fall in love immediately, 1 second, and they look at each other and they're in love. And they have this strange, and, and whether there is such a thing as love at first sight or not, I am not sure. I will, maybe I just never got it. Could be. But my point is a different one. My point is that it always leads to, yes, people are destined to be together. They will be together. And even if we don't have any normal form of getting to know each other, building up some sort of friendship, and then going further, which is, a fairly healthy way to build a relationship. No, what happens is we have conflict, and then it flips on a dime, and suddenly we're there, right? It's like Swan is like, yeah, I need to go in there, and Gareth says, all right, I'll go with you if you bond me as a warder. And I'm like, all right, that escalated quickly. Why would you do that kind of shit? And that's sort of the problem that I have with it. It feels unrealistic. We're not talking about how weird and childish Swan's, oh, I'm in love with him, I'm going to put mice in his bed bullshit was earlier on. We're talking about how unrealistic that is, because that kind of idea, raises weird ideas of how relationships work with people that read it and have not had any experiences of falling in love or, having a relationship yet. and these books are still sort of like for kids mostly, right? I mean, most of us read, not me, but most of you, I guess, read that stuff when you were like 13, 14, and that whole relationship thing became a thing, or sort of like, you know what I mean? And I hate that we have these kind of things going down. All right. What else is there that is interesting in the Egwene part of things? I mean, I don't know. As I said, the rest is fairly straightforward. How you would build this up, and I think that's a problem maybe of Brandon Sanderson writing this. I'm doing something that I was, not supposed to do. The whole idea of um, interpreting too much into the writer. But there's like a short interview thing with Brandon Sanderson talking about like how he started writing and how he felt writing it at the end of the audiobook. And he's like, yeah, at some point there was stuff that I could decide, and I had to figure out where, the fan, me, the fan, Brandon Sanderson, well, him, the fan, Brandon Sanderson, wanted something because it felt cool for the fan, and the writer, Brandon Sanderson, could not do that because it would not work as well as a novel. And I feel, while he might have been aware of that fact, in a lot of situations, Brandon Sanderson certainly erred on the side of being fan-friendly, which may explain why a lot of people like these books. But it certainly does not always work for a, good story. And the whole, bit of, now Egwene is the only one that they can, look to because she is so talented, she does everything right, and her then doing all these things rightly, and the only reason given is her intuition, it just felt right to do. Yeah, but it feels right to do because it's sort of like how we, the reader, would like it if we wanted to have everything neat. And I don't like things neat. I want to have, things feel like real. And neat isn't real. Reality, unfortunately, is very rarely actually neat. Most of the time, reality is messy and sucks. And it's sad to say that, but that's basically what it is, right? And so that's why I think the rest of it, the whole raising her to the Amelin seat again and doing the whole thing with Sylviana, it feels satisfying for the reader. But it feels satisfying in the same way that eating fast food or drinking soft drinks can feel satisfying. You get your quick hit of sugar and it's wow, and then it just drips away because there's literally nothing that makes you think about it afterwards. It's like, yeah, that's how I would have done it without thinking about it first. I'm like, it's a quick fix, blockbuster way of doing these things, and I'm not a fan of that in a lot of ways. I understand that it can be immensely satisfying to read it for the first time. Yeah, finally that happens. Finally that happens. And it's so smooth and it's awesome. It's like, yeah, but smooth and awesome will just not leave any, lingering thoughts or anything. It will not leave any marks on my brain and memory. And, it will not make me think because I've already thought all of these thoughts before. And that's a bit of a loss with a book. All right, I've complained enough about this part. We'll see where things are going in the Rand side of things, okay? All right, so after nuking Graendal, Rand goes and figures out, he has to leave, he has to just abandon, what's the place called? He has to abandon Aradoman. Oh, and I finally remembered the name of the city now that he's leaving it. It's Bandar Eban. And he just leaves everyone to starve in that place or be killed by the Shanshan. Because we find out at the end when he leaves that all the food has spoiled again, and all those people that have come and fled to the city to actually get food there will all die. Because, yeah, why not? And we need to talk about that for a second in general. The problem here is, yes, this is supposed to be the end of the world, an apocalyptic kind of thing, and there will be people dying because we need all the suffering and shit. We need that. My problem is, it doesn't come across. Look, I've read Revelation by that John on Shrooms guy. I've read that shit. And this book with all the stuff that we do, that we read there, it does not feel apocalyptic. It feels weirdly, it lacks that level of like threat or like level of gravitas, if that's the word for it. Because that's something that, say the Revelation does have, right? It feels, when you read it, because of its weirdness and craziness and insanity, it is very easy to fall into Revelation and be dragged into it, right? But this one doesn't. It's like, yeah, there's hundreds of thousands of people. They will die. Shrug. Next scene. Yeah, fuck that. If it doesn't have any impact, why put it in there? Yes, I see why you're putting it in there, because you want to show that Rand is under a lot of pressure. He was under a shit ton of pressure before. And adding just like millions of people starving without showing us anything about it afterwards or anything around it, it does not have any impact. And that's the problem. So, yeah. While we have all kinds of problems in the world, they just like feel meaningless to me in a lot of ways, and I'm blaming both Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson for this. Because it's their job as the author to make me care about those people. And yeah, frankly, I don't. Anyway, Rand is, doing Randy things, and in the meantime, Nynaeve talks to Cadsuane, and Cadsuane goes, yeah, find Perrin, because if you find Perrin, you can find Tam, and we get Tam to talk to Rand to get his humanity back out there, because that's sort of like the whole theme for a long couple of books is like always like Rand has to, become human again and learn emotions again. He has to laugh again. Remember that plan that Cadsuane has with Sir Leah, I don't know, 4 books ago, when they make that deal that they will make Rand laugh again, and we talk about that in a second. I promise you. So that's sort of how this goes. They find Tam. Tam talks to Rand. Rand goes crazy when he finds out that Tam was, brought there by Cadsuane. He almost kills his dad. He jumps to Ebudar, sees that businesses are thriving. Capitalism is working in Ebudar under the regime of the Shanchan. He jumps to Dragonmount, and then out of like a dialogue with himself, he destroys that super sangreal and laughs again. Good job, Cadsuane, for doing fucking nothing. Wonderful, isn't it? I mean, so yeah, and that's the end of the book, basically. Rand has found himself and figured out why he's doing the shit that he's doing, and he's ready to kick some Dark One's ass. If the Dark One has an ass. I'm not quite sure yet. We'll find out, I'm pretty sure. All right, let's look at these things in sort of detail. So Rand is getting more and more, pressure from all kinds of sides. Things are getting harder and harder. The Borderlanders, who we still maybe know do contain one Forsaken, or maybe not, want to talk with him in Far Madding, where he can't channel and shit, and he's like, yeah, fuck you, I might just kill you all. And he doesn't, because Nynaeve yells at him, which is pretty good. And then he goes back, he talks to Tam, and then Tam's like, yeah, Cadsuane got me here, and he's like, no! Goes angry, and, So here's the thing, we've known for a long time, like, there was that idea that Cadsuane would help Rand do something, would help Rand to discover something. That's what Min said. And yeah, but she doesn't. She really doesn't. Yes, you can argue. You can argue and construct this whole thing that if Cadsuane would not have gotten Tam there, Tam would not have talked to Rand. Rand would not have gotten into this more extreme state that would then lead him to Dragonmount, where he realized it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit, because all the things that happen on Dragonmount don't rely on Tam, except that one quick memory, but that could have just as well come from anyone else but Tam. And that's not how you fulfill these kinds of things. And there's a reason why. And you want to know what that reason is? Men are fucking self-reliant and don't need women to do anything for them. They need to be there, those women, to do care work and, care for all those toxic, broken men that just do nothing but dick fights out there all the time. That's what we need them for, because afterwards, and that's like more of the whole, like, Min's like, situation with that I spoke about yesterday quickly about the whole like domestic violence situation. When Min is like, yeah, it's not really Rand who's killing me. It's someone else taking control. And even with that other stuff, like, no, it's Rand. Fuck it, it's Rand. And don't go in with those narratives about like how domestic abusers, are not really. That's not how that works. All right, I'm losing my thread because I'm getting agitated again. We don't want that here. We're all for the cool reasoning and explaining why this shit sucks. So yes, the whole thing of Cadsuane's influence there shows once again that it is always men who figure that shit out, and women can't help them unless they submit and are just like the helpmeet of the man. Great, isn't it? Well, that's a big one. So what happens at the end is Rand destroys that super Sangreal and is realize that no, he's not actually insane, and he's not hearing a different voice. Lusa Theron is the same person. He just got reborn again, and the chance for rebirth is that you can actually do it again, and maybe this time don't fail. And look, the entire metaphysics of this world suck because no one actually thought them through. We know that. The idea that love can be seen as the answer. But nobody bleeds for the dance. Well, you know what I mean. My problem is, it's absolutely cheesy. It comes more or less out of nowhere. The reasoning there towards it is super, belabored, and it doesn't make any real sense. And tying it back to Cadsuane would make even less sense. What was fairly okay-ish if you subscribe to the politics is Rand jumping to Ebudar, wandering around and seeing how everything is wonderful because the Shanchan bring law and order and leave small business to flourish. It's all the good things of small government and, getting all the freaks leashed, I guess. And he's still pissed off about the whole leashing of people that can channel, but that can probably be worked out, and everyone else is just happy to be left alone under the security and democracy that the Shanchan have brought to the Middle East. No. Yes, you know what I mean. The whole scene was powerful, him just walking there and being anonymous, no one recognizing him, and he finally having the chance to feel like a human, normal, regular human being again. Which, the whole idea of him being the Dragon Reborn doesn't give him. That part was a really cool, strong scene. That was good. I liked that. Up to the point when he's like, yeah, and look, it's all this wonderful business and everyone is happy and making money and isn't that great? No. It's not. Not necessarily. Let's look at all the other downsides of that shit for once, shall we? So yeah, that part was strong. Him jumping up there just felt super weird to have that epic revelatory scene of him standing on top of the mountain, realizing that he does everything for love, and then the sun breaking through, and I'm like... It feels like hagiography at this point, is what I'm saying. A word that Brandon Sanderson will probably not even know if it bit his arse. What he, however, does know are words that don't really fit into the book. Which brings us to the final bit here, we've spoken about the problems and all. Let's look at the whole book as Brandon Sanderson's first essay into the world of the Wheel of Time. How's he doing so far? Does he improve things that Bobby J kind of didn't do well? Well, maybe not. Does he fuck up? Yeah, of course he does. But then again, largely that's due to the story that was already built up. So, no blame to him. But, as I said at the beginning, he certainly does write, he resorts to action instead of atmosphere, which is easier to write and easier to, press the buttons in the reader. He then also writes a much smoother prose, a much more streamlined prose than Robert Jordan. The only problem there is that he has a more modern vocabulary that sometimes breaks immersion. Now, I know there's a discussion on all of that, and the Critical Dragon has talked about it and all of that. I'm not going into that part. What I'm saying is that Brandon Sanderson sometimes resorts to words that don't really fit in. They don't fit into the overall vocabulary. There's a bunch of scenes, right? When the sea folk called the rings they wear in their noses and ears, he calls them piercings. which is fine. It's just that the word piercing has never shown up in the entirety of the Wheel of Time before. But the rings of the sea folk have been described in excruciating fucking detail. Because it's all about ranks and status, and we need to know all of these things because everything has to be ranked and sorted into really small boxes in these worlds, right? So we know about it. And to suddenly switch from ring to piercing is definitely a question of time, because when Robert Jordan started writing these books, I guess no one called those things piercings. We just called them earrings or maybe nose rings or whatever. You know what I mean? So it shows that this is a more modern vocabulary, and it kind of sticks out, that word. And the same is later on. There's a scene in like chapter 40, chapter 41, where someone's like, one of the Aes Sedai is like, though Egwene's results up there fighting the Shan-Chan made her efforts look amateurish. The word amateur does really stick out like a fucking sore thumb there. It's like, don't do that. And that once again would be the job of an actually good editor to look over that. It's like, Brandon, come on, use a different word there. I know what you're trying to say. It makes a lot of sense. Why not say made her almost feel like a novice again? Stays in the Aes Sedai vocabulary. Makes a lot more sense. Doesn't stick out that much. Would be so fucking easy, but we don't. So we have those aspects there where the more streamlined, more modern prose that makes a lot of this stuff read much faster, because, a more archaic vocabulary always makes more like us contemporary readers sort of think harder about shit. So most of the time it's easy to read that stuff, but if you have one word stick out like that, it sucks. It is not good. The other part definitely is Brandon Sanderson has a more visual style. There's like these two scenes of Egwene addressing everyone in front of that huge portal of the tower, talking to everyone, holding her wonderfully cheesy speech that feels way more American than anything before in the entire series. The whole thing, the way it is set up feels very cinematic in a way. And while I have accused Robert Jordan of a lot of things, I don't think I have ever accused him of like too cinematic writing. And yeah, maybe it's the kind of cinema that this looks like that makes me, not happy about it. But that's sort of the problem. It's like that one, and then the scene with Rand alone on the mountaintop, the sun coming out behind him, and all of that. I don't know. It overdoes the cheese, which is hard to do, but Brandon Sanderson manages to do exactly that. It feels like we are in the modern age of superhero movies, right? This feels very Marvel cinema MCU of the 2000s compared to the more clunky way that stuff happened under Robert Jordan. And I'm not a fan of that. It makes it so easy to like it and whatnot, but it goes back to what I said earlier, right? It's that quick hit of sugar and whatnot, and like nothing really remains underneath it, because it's all just, the quick visual effect, and then we're done. This is special effects fantasy without any depth behind it, and that's sort of my problem here. Apart from that, he certainly is ruthless when it comes to tying down knots, tying up story threads that he doesn't want to deal with anymore, which I understand, because the narrative and the number of people in the cast have been extremely sprawling before. So I get the drive to just like pare it down to the main characters so you can actually get that final battle over with. I get it. Makes sense. I'm fine with it. It just sometimes feels a bit too abrupt with, someone like Massima and the ending of the Varen Sedai thread, which, I don't know. But we spoke about that before. So yeah, it's not a good book. It's not a terrible book, but it's not a good book by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm glad I'm over with it. We'll be back with Towers of Midnight on Monday. And until then, I'm going to read good books. And maybe another one that I will not really like, but I feel like I should go and read The Hunger of the Gods, which came out today. So I'm going to read that, and I'm going to read The Dragon Waiting. And I'm really looking forward to that one. You'll hear my opinions far too soon. Have a great weekend, everyone. Celebrate Easter if you're like non-Orthodox Christians. Celebrate something else if you feel like it. Or just, relax. And I'll see you soon. Cheers.